You're watching live coverage from the CBT News Stage at the 2024 NADA Show in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick back out here at the CBT stage, and we are live recording. I shouldn't say recording, we're actually live, and we're right here at the CBT stage, as I mentioned, at the 2024 NADA convention in Vegas, and I'm joined by Rusty West, who's the co-founder of MarketScan. Thank you so much for stopping by, man. It's so good to see you.
Thanks for having me. This is fun. This is the first time we've done it live.
I know.
Are you nervous to interview me live? I love how nervous you are.
That's because a lot of people know you that are watching, and they're like, they would be nervous too if they were sitting here.
I promise only to get you in a little bit of trouble today, Jim.
A little bit of hot water.
Not too much.
That's right. How's the show going?
It's great. It's great. You know, it's
Good.
fun. It's very new for me, right? I've been doing NADA since 96 or 97.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And this is the first time I've done it as an employee, right? We sold S&P Global, as you guys know, last February. And the merger's been fantastic, right? So got a different booth, a bunch of energy in the booth, working with some brilliant people. I mean, it's just
awesome.
But
no more race cars in the booth, right?
Yeah, we don't have any. We don't have any cars in. No cars in the booth.
Right.
That part was shot down. They said we're gonna put some people here and try and do some
Something
business.
tells me the CEO of Global, it was not quite the enthusiast that you are, right?
They're a little more conservative,
but
it's a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I get to work with some really brilliant people, and we get to solve some big problems, and it's fun, you know. It's great.
Well, as expected, speaking about big problems, everyone here at NAD is talking about the recent FTC cars ruling. What concerns are you hearing about this ruling, and what are your thoughts on addressing them?
Yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic, right? We've been, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and every year there's some kind of topic that's a buzz. You remember several years ago it was blockchain, and then a bunch of years ago it was CRM.
Yeah.
But what's being talked about a whole lot right now is this cars ruling, and combating automotive retail scams. The name kind of says it all. Yeah. So I think dealers are really taking notice that they've got an exposure, and they're trying to figure out how to mitigate a lot of that exposure. So.
Right. Any advice? I mean, as they try to navigate through this, it's going to be all about lining themselves up, right, with the right vendors.
100%. There's they have to get everything right?
Yeah.
And in order to do that, they need to really kind of make sure that the companies that work with can represent them properly, represent their needs, right, and satisfy their needs. So they need to vet their technology companies really well, make sure that everything's transparent, accurate, consistent, right, through the whole journey, and then kind of surround themselves with experts in other areas too. There are some brilliant compliance guys in the automotive space, and they're having to kind of drink through a fire hose to learn some of this. And as you know, the ruling's kind of changing, and they don't really know exactly how things are going to. There's all kinds of issues about gap insurance, what can be sold, and how much can be sold, and all that stuff.
Sure.
So as this thing really evolves, I think leaning on the experts in the space is going to be real important for them.
Sure. So what are the other major things that you're hearing out there? What are some of the other topics? You know, we hear these two little letters that are polarizing, EVs, right? Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So that one's. We're hearing a lot about that, and the bubble's kind of starting to burst.
Right.
And I think that it's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, you got a lot of dealers who have a lot of battery EVs, not hybrids, but battery EVs that are piling up on the lots. Right? They can't give them away. There's lots of support that's coming in, from federal tax, and then, or not federal, but federal rebates, and then you got the OEM rebates and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of issues with it.
You warned, we had a discussion on CBT News over a year ago, and you predicted this, and you warned against people and manufacturers that are really going all in on EVs and saying, wait a minute, I live in California, and we have rolling blackouts sometimes. There's apartment buildings. I remember you telling me, what happens when it's 300 apartments and there's 6 chargers? What do we do, right?
Yeah, so you're exactly correct. The infrastructure doesn't exist.
Right.
And the timeline that the government's trying to impose on it is unrealistic, right? The technology's not mature enough. Yeah. And they'll get there, or something will get there, right? Whether it's battery EV or it's something else, eventually we'll move away from ICE.
Sure.
But I think it's premature. If you look, you always, when people talk about stuff going on weird in politics or business and stuff, it's always follow the money. And you look at the U.S. economy, and you take into consideration how much of it is powered by petroleum. Right? There's 125,000 independently owned and operated gas stations in the U.S.
Is it really 125,000?
125,000. They employ on average of 17 people, right?
Oh
So that's
gosh.
a couple million people.
Yeah.
PricewaterhouseCoopers did this report, and it said that roughly 6% of all U.S. employees are employed because of the petroleum industry, and that's 10 million people.
Oh my gosh!
Right?
Wow.
And so what happens if that industry starts to even just drop a little bit? It has a huge impact.
Sure.
And then you also have all the the arguments about the environmental impact and all that stuff. And then we're seeing all this crazy weather around the country, which is kind of it is what it is. But you get these super cold climates, and these cars, they're not moving, and they can't charge them. So I think we're going to end up somewhere down the road with something that replaces ICE, but I don't think it's going to happen in the timeline that that everybody was predicting.
I attended the J.D. Power Summit on Thursday, and their analysts came out and had this incredible presentation. One of the slides was to show their prediction for EVs over the course of the next 10 years. They said by 2035, there'll be 65% of the penetration of the vehicles sold will be EVs. Do you think that's a high number or a low number? Or do you think they've nailed it?
I think it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Even
I think 65.
But I think maybe 2035. I think 65% of the vehicles might be something other than internal combustion engine vehicles.
Okay.
But I'm not so
maybe
sure
a
that
hybrid or.
Well, or hydrogen, right?
Yeah.
BMW just made this big announcement, right? That they're doing this big hydrogen play.
Sure.
But again, it's the infrastructure. Right? I mean, the hydrogen model is great, but where do you fill it up, right? And once that gets figured out, Maribara just announced that they're not doing full EVs with Cadillacs. They're going to go back to a hybrid model, and that was just a couple of days ago. And that was you guys, I think, ran that. So there's
Mary called us, in fact. And said, I want to release it first.
Hey, we need to talk to Jim first, right? But she should have done it live here.
Poor Automotive News. They missed that one.
That's right. So, but it's going to be interesting to watch. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. So you've seen a lot of this over the last almost 25, 26 years coming out to, what are some of the solutions that your company is helping its customers with? I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah, I don't like to make these things an infomercial, but, one of the things that's been really fun, we've been a big data company for a very long time and solved some pretty big problems for the automotive space. And we got acquired by a massive data company.
Okay.
And working to kind of normalize some of those assets has been challenging, but fun challenging.
Okay.
And the combination of some of the stuff that we've done over my career with this space is this is my 36th year. Wow. This is live. I started when I was 7, just so everybody knows, right? But 36 years, and they've got massive amounts of information also, right?
Yeah.
So as we start normalizing this data, we're able to really glean some very interesting statistics, right?
Sure.
We're throwing some artificial intelligence and some machine learning at some of this stuff, and be able to do some predictive modelings, and working with the OEMs and the lenders, and having access, right? We had cool tools, but I couldn't just walk in the door because nobody wanted to talk to Rusty West in the OEM space, and obviously S&P Global Mobility, they're a giant in that space. So it's fun, right?
Yeah, on the personal side, you and your dad founded the company, right? And you worked side by side. What do you think he'd think of all of this big, acquisition?
I hope he's not too ticked off. But
I don't think so. I think he's probably pretty proud of his son.
It was one of the greatest joys of my life starting a business with my dad. Yeah. And we started with nothing. I mean, we were broke. Ate a lot of top ramen and that
and then made a lot of money, and there was a time you lost some money, right?
Well, and we crushed it.
You saw it all.
My life hasn't been rolling hills. It's been an EKG, right? Up and down. And so we've lost everything a couple times. Kept the business going, but
that's great.
He passed away in 2005, which was right before we really got clobbered. He bugged out easy, right? Just kidding. Love you, Dad.
Just kidding.
But
he'd be pretty proud, though, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think if I had to look back at my career and say if my dad was going to be proud of me about one thing, is that I did a great job surrounding myself with brilliant people and giving them the autonomy to go make themselves proud.
That's right.
If you do it right, your role is you got to be a leader. You got to be the one that runs up the hill and say, "Follow me," right? But you got to be a great cheerleader. And I had a lot of people to cheer for, super talented. We still do. They're just
Sure.
thousands of them as opposed to
Oh, there's no
100
question.
of them.
Yeah, there's no question. And they've learned a lot from you, and they're still with the company today, and they're knocking the cover off the ball and doing great work. But now for S&P Global, right?
Yeah, and I get to hang out with them, in Vegas, right?
That's right.
Which is why I'm a little fuzzy this morning. But other than that, it's all good. So
awesome. Mr. Rusty West, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Really appreciate it.
thank you, and it's a pleasure to be live. It's the first time I've
pretty
done
cool.
one in a long time.
Isn't it
so,
pretty
yeah.
cool? And by the way, if you're out here at the convention, stop by their booth. It's an incredible booth. It's always busy as heck. It won't have race cars this year, but I know you're going to find what they have very, very interesting. So thank you so much.
Thanks for the shameless plug. I appreciate that very much. So.
Thanks for watching the live coverage from the CBT News Stage at the 2024 NADA Show.